Yes, we're gonna take your AR-15, your AK-47.
Welcome to the rice fields, mother.
Drop it. Yeah.
You will never get this, you will never get this, la 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 la.
The eMilitia Podcast, Episode 60, The Boogaloo in Retrospect. Enjoy, fuckers.
Hello and welcome to the eMilitia Podcast. I'm BR, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts Rezzy, aka Resurrecting Freedom, and Small Crimes, aka Mel, aka Empress of Meme, aka Please Quit Changing Your Brand! And our guest today is Smokey the Appalachistani, aka the State of Appalachia on Instagram and Twitter. Oh, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you.
Oh, you cut out a little bit. All right. So today we're going to be talking about I'm going to say the B word. We're going to talk about the Boogaloo movement in retrospect, and so it's been a while since that was really at the height of its popularity. I mean, we saw the MAGA hat guys and the Boogaloo kill off the craze as it started to become less and less about freedom from government violence and more just rebellion against the left. It really just got diluted until it was essentially valueless and more damaging to our optics than effective. And so how'd that happen? How did something that was such a crazy rallying cry that kicked all of these, like the NRA and all these useless gun rights activists up the arse, and instead replaced them with decentralized, radical, fresh and energetic young people fighting for their rights? How did that go from that to just a dead meme that we now poke with a stick and kind of sadly wonder, what was the end result? Something that could mobilize 15,000 people in Richmond, Virginia, and all sorts of thousands others all over the country to. Sorry, what?
According to our record, it's 36,000.
36. I always try and be fairly conservative about that, but fuck, that doesn't surprise me. Those streets were.
Those are the numbers that Virginia State Police. I think that hitting a little low on it, to be honest.
Shit. Well, I mean, I believe it. I always say around 15,000 just to be conservative on it, but yeah. And we know just how many hundreds of thousands of people were active on social media sharing that, even in the early days before it got co-opted so much. It was featured by every alternative news outlet and a lot of the mainstream ones you could think of. So where is it now? Where are they now? Spirit of Resistance shared an article with us from, who was it? MSN? So about as
Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera, but Microsoft News, I think, reposted it or something. Like they shared it. Maybe it's like an external link.
I mean, this is about as mainstream as it can get, really.
Yeah,
Microsoft News.
I agree.
So this is 4 days old as of 4/20. Nice. And the article is titled "The Boogaloo Movement Has a New Strategy," and we're so used to being like poorly reported on and smeared in every way possible, but this article is disturbingly on the money. So we're going to look into it and kind of retroactively think about what the movement was and kind of how it changed and how its I guess followers and activists involved changed strategy and changed culturally as it became bigger and bigger, more reported on, and more vilified. So, Mel, anything to add before we start on that?
I've got nothing to add. I think you covered it.
Well, shit, don't make me sound like I'm the fucking dictator here. All right. No.
I do want
right,
to stress that they did a very fair job in this, and I definitely clicked that link ready to be fired up.
Yep. Yeah, 'cause, like, every time you see one of these articles, it's kind of like, all right, roll eyes, prepare to be called a Boogaloo, and probably some kind of extremist.
And they actually, like, born of online meme culture. Like, that's all anybody ever wanted the MSN to say.
Start reading. Oh, and before we do get started, I will stress, everyone here was in some way involved with kind of like the Boogaloo memes in the very early days, and so yeah, for anyone who's new to the community,
I wasn't.
all right, yeah, deny.
So what I was saying is my old Instagram account was definitely #Boogaloo, but then as soon as things started getting less chuckly online, the movement started getting more, picking up steam. I definitely stopped any form of, the B word.
Yeah, we're very much hipsters. But like genuinely, the eMilitia itself. I mean, at this point, we're on the shit list of internal investigations for the military, so fuck it. and we have listeners in Langley and Quantico, so it is what it is. But we were like some of the early people to adopt using, Boogaloo as a joke on Instagram. We certainly not the originators by any means, but we heavily partook in kind of the, meme warfare, propagandizing radical gun rights, and like heavily libertarian leaning gun rights activism instead of the fuddy call your rep kind of bullshit we were used to. And it was funny to watch that morph into whatever the fuck it was, or whatever the fuck it became. So anyway, this article begins, or it's titled, "The Boogaloo Movement Has a New Strategy. Members of the anti-government Boogaloo movement are adopting a new strategy to achieve the end of the US government," members tell Al Jazeera. "Adherents are calling for cooperation with left-wing organizations, previously considered adversaries by some in the Boogaloo, to foster a mass withdrawal from the political and economic systems overseen by the United States government. Based on the political philosophy Agorism, it aims to bleed the government of tax funds through a counter economy, compliance with laws, and mandates given by voters." So, right there, was anyone ever expecting to read Agorism in a mainstream
No.
media article?
Nope.
That's strange. So, barriers are already up. I'm already like, all right, where's the black helicopter? It's quite the development, and
That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, like you imagine fucking Konkin seeing a bunch of armed activists are being being labeled Agorists. He'd be slowly and chunkily rolling in his grave.
Chunkily.
Chunkin. I don't know. It's an interesting time. Like, I don't really know what to make of them so happily publishing Agorism. It's shining a light on it.
I'm just going to give Al Jazeera props for, not making it sound like an extremist ideology.
Yeah, they just
Yeah.
put it out black and white. Like, this is what they believe. There's no like it's a white supremacist tactic to
Yeah, exactly.
damage the state or something. I don't know. It's just fucking out there. And also just to hear them talk about cooperation with left-wing organization. That's also something because they were trying during the height of summer 2020 when, as I was talking about a little bit before we started recording, we saw those pictures from I forget which state it was, but wherever our friend with the mullet with the US flag shaved into his mullet, and there's a picture of like him and a few other, I think, is it Garrett Foster, that group where they were
killed?
no, where they were marching with the young guy that was marching with the Black Lives Matter protesters in like the very early days. There's a picture of some woman. She has like all the like black
Is he wearing
gear.
like a red Hawaiian shirt?
Yeah, and he's just like carrying a pistol.
That's Mike Dunn. It was
That's-
actually in Richmond.
Oh, I was saying Garrett Foster because I was getting all fucking okay.
Yeah, Garrett was the gentleman in Texas who got killed.
Yeah,
Mike Dunn was the
that's
Virginia
right.
Knights organization, I think is what he did.
Yeah, he started off like doing the more traditional militia stuff.
Yeah.
And then turned it into more of a big boy. But so it was funny to see like there was this kind of cooperation where Boogaloo Boys would march with Black Lives Matter protesters back then, and at the time they were being reported on as white supremacists, blah blah blah, all this shit. They're there to agitate the riots. They want to kick off a civil war with the riots and stuff. And now they're openly reporting adherents are calling for cooperation with left-wing organizations previously considered adversaries. No, fuck you. I mean, obviously it's a decentralized movement, so it's all over the place. But there was a large component who was like, well, it's all fucking a distraction, and these people aren't so much an enemy as, the media and state say they are to us. But now they're kind of like, they're writing their own version of history, which is how it always happens, They're now saying this is like a new development when it was something from very early on.
Well, I think they showed their true opinions on, what the movement was going to be anyway, when they showed Trigi and TAC 4-5 walking across the street at Lobby Day in Richmond. Trigi's got a group with 2 or 3 other black dudes with him, and the news is saying, look at this group of white supremacists walking to the rally. Like, all right, well, you lost any credibility you had, but for some reason they're still employed by it.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, media, those 2 guys weren't, like, black enough for you, I guess. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, unless they're all Clayton Bigsby, but, I don't think they are.
Nice.
Just every black member of the Boogaloo is actually a white supremacist. God, they've even got me saying of the Boogaloo. Good lord. It's been a while since I talked about this stuff, I guess. Anyone else have any more comments on that part? Just the intro, talking about agorism, counter economy, and cooperation with left-wing organizations?
I do wonder, like a natural response to like the pandemic was just like, not people who realized that they were doing Agorist things, but like just as a natural response, everyone privately paying for haircuts, fixing cars, print jobs, things like that. So I just wonder if maybe that propagated the philosophy a little bit, and maybe that's how it reached the ears of places like Al Jazeera and Microsoft News.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, because it was just like you said, it was a natural response, and whether they knew they were doing it or not, it was like a survival thing. And so all of a sudden it's like, well, it just takes one autist who's read more Conkin than Rothbard in the right groups to tell his 3 buddies that already Agorist in some form, and then take it a step further with the preaching. So the article continues. The move marks a divide between the Boogaloo's base that eschews government and white nationalist members, here we go, who tried to stoke violence during last summer's Black Lives Matter protest to start a new civil war. And his name, Magnus Panvidya, a vocal Boogaloo member working to unite left and right-wing anti-government groups, told Al Jazeera the idea of Agora, that practice is very ubiquitous, almost this is kind of poorly written. That practice is very ubiquitous. Almost anyone you speak to in the Boogaloo.
What does it even?
I don't really. I feel like that was poorly translated or something.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the middle of a larger quote from him, and they were just like, let's get the meat and potatoes of what he's trying to say, but they didn't fill in the blanks for us.
Yeah. I'll continue on and see if it makes any more sense. Penvidya identifies only as, quote, anarchist, but said his actions and goals pull very heavily from agorism. Broadly, members of the group, called Boogaloo Boys, have no issues with violating the law to accomplish what they're doing, he said. He said, referring to the exchange of goods on grey markets without government oversight, which are popping up throughout Boogaloo networks to sell, quote, there's so many weird quotations, to sell, quote, equipment. Tax evasion is encouraged too. I should just be saying quote every time there's a ridiculous quote, and I will in the future. So here's where it starts to take a turn into that slightly more, it is pretty on the money so far, but then it's starting to take on a more propaganda tone.
Tax evasion is encouraged too.
Well, not only that, but they're saying like one of the main goods on the gray market is, quote, equipment, which is like kind of this open-ended, sinister
military equipment, farm equipment, tools to build a house.
I sell you some shit so you can put down some pavers in your backyard. I'm selling you equipment on the gray market.
Yeah.
Because I didn't charge you sales tax. Or it could be some fucking mags, or it could be bullets or guns, But they just, obviously there's that inference there, which is interesting.
I do like how they do bring up the tax evasion is encouraged, but like, if they were reporting about a car meet and I was selling you like my 06 shitbox that I have, they wouldn't be like, oh, tax evasion's going on here, folks.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of to put us on the shit list in some form, because I pay my taxes is a defense of being good in today's society.
Yeah. Well, hey, I have never, cheated the IRS for official reasons. Ever anything like that.
I would never want to harm such a humble and well-meaning institution.
I love the IRS.
I actually donate extra every time I do my taxes.
Yeah, they give me the money back, and I send it right back to them as a thank you.
I'm like, no, please, treat yourself. Another Reaper drone or something. I don't know. Maybe convince my kids to hate me. Have fun. What I am liking is like openly talking about working to unite left and right wing anti-government groups. It's because we do so much ourselves to to fight pointlessly, and there's all sorts of different opinions on that. But I'm personally I'm into the whole anarchism without objective shit, and usually they don't bother to even treat us to being called, anarcho-capitalist or anything. It's like a violent, white supremacist, anti-government group. But instead, and I think anarcho-capitalists is mentioned later, but they're saying left and right-wing anti-government groups, which, I don't know, it's surprisingly non-biased, because usually it's from like a left-wing source, and it's like, white supremacist radicals, and if it's from a right-wing source, it's, Antifa, domestic terrorists.
You're either the Nazi or you're the communist. There's nothing in between.
Exactly. And for them to openly talk about anyone uniting is just interesting to me. I don't want to read too deeply into it, but it is interesting to note. Next part of the article is called, it starts Rise in Use. The Boogaloo movement made its mark over the summer of 2020. I mean, okay, that's fair. Made its mark, but it was obviously active for a fair bit before then. Like a year. What would you guys say? 2019, 2018 when it started?
I want to say maybe like fall of 2019, right after the at least for just because I live in Virginia, I think it was right after the elections when everything kind of switched blue here.
Yeah.
They started bouncing up real hard, and then you had Lobby Day.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was still a poll here, but the summer, the COVID George Floyd riots that occurred last summer. It wasn't really a mix of Boogaloo stuff here. It was just you had the BLM Antifa groups, and you'd have occasional dudes in Hawaiian shirts show up, but even they weren't saying like Boogaloo at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna fault them over like 3 months time.
Oh,
discrepancy.
yeah, no. So the Boogaloo movement made its mark over the summer of 2020 when men clad in Hawaiian shirts bearing AR-15 style guns began showing up at Black Lives Matter protests after the May 25th death of George Floyd. The group attracted white nationalists that hoped the tumult of a nationwide protest movement could be harnessed to start a, quote, Boogaloo, a term for a second US civil war born of online meme culture that would devolve into a race war. I'm going to go a little bit further and see if they actually, like, offer any additional stuff to that, or if it's just a race war to them. According to watchdog groups and Al Jazeera's review of online forums and chat groups, those elements remain. But Panvidya said they were purged from the Boogaloo movement. Our glorious president of the Boogaloo, Panvidya. Okay, it does go into a little bit more. The Boogaloo movement is half, quote, libertarian with a big L, referencing the I do actually agree though with this assessment. The Boogaloo movement is half libertarian with a big L, referencing the political party that advocates for limited government. They didn't even outright say the Libertarian Party. That's kind of funny. And then the rest of us are just a widespread of different forms of anarchism, Panvidya said. The Boogaloo movement is decentralized, making it difficult to gauge agorism's popularity in the movement. So,
but we'll ask this one specific person.
Yeah,
the president.
That's Panvidya for president. That's I've honestly never heard of this dude.
I think I am a very good gauge of agorism's popularity in the movement, because I remember like a year ago posting about it and getting like super hateful comments. Probably
yeah,
because
I'm pretty
I
certain
said the Boogaloo was a joke and all of them were weak and weren't going to do anything, but that's beside the point. They were not very happy with the idea of agorism. And now everybody's like way on board with it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. All I'm saying is I'm pretty certain I heard of agorism from your post, just to put things.
Nice.
I mean, Mel absolutely I don't want to say de-radicalized, just radicalized us in a different direction, because the eMilitia, the eMilitia before Mel's involvement was very much get together, angrily bitch, talk about the inevitable civil unrest and destruction of the government via a civil war. And because a lot of us, even if we'd been anarchists for a longer period of time, we were still, however long we've been doing it, we were all in some form of the anger stage, not the progress, not accomplishing anything. And I'll defend it. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you're intelligent and like take some time to really think about where you're at, all that kind of stuff. But so many people.
You can be angry, just don't go out and
just don't fucking ruin your life before you've really considered your beliefs.
Yeah.
Like Boogaloo Clyde, R.I.P.
Oh man.
R.I.P. Autist. I actually think he was. I don't think he was even a boog boy. Even though that was like a good meme for a few days, it was. He was. I think he was just like an angry. Was he a white nationalist or something?
He was definitely like the photo of his eyes. That's like pure, absolute fear.
Currently shitting self.
I'm
getting off track, just shitting on dead people.
I think like a lot of it is just education. Like whenever I went from Ron Paul to kind of like no government should exist, but I never knew how to get to point A from A to B, like
Yeah,
there
and that's
shouldn't be
most
a
people.
government. So the only thing in my mind was there has to be some sort of collapse. I never, until I read, I think like a Rollo McFlugel article, like trimming the fat off government or something like that. I never realized how to get to point A or B from A without something in between. And I think a lot of people were like that, because as soon as like agorism was introduced to the community and other people were like, oh, this sounds kind of cool, and it just spread really quick.
Yeah.
Well, at
And
the end of the day, what sounds better, raising a family and, growing food or dying in a foxhole?
Right.
seriously.
That was my perspective of what the two were. It was like, oh, cool, I have this much better option. So, if the world collapses, let it. I'm going to grow food and marry the person I love and raise.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like we went from kind of being this quasi death cult by accident. It was like this noble death cult where it's like, I would rather if the US has to collapse at some, and this is like kind of where everyone's, because there was
the
there
Boogaloo
was
movement was pretty much just a bunch of people all coming to a realization at the same time about how government just doesn't work. And it's not working for them, and they're not happy with it. And then being angry. And then everyone being angry at the same time.
Yep.
And then
each other
when
up.
cooler minds prevailed, and we realized
AKA
nothing was happening anytime soon,
Well,
that it moved on from there.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was because I think while we were angry, there was a certain amount of rational thinking to the anger. And we like to think back at it and laugh about where we were now, but we do have to give ourselves some credit. We were like, the US, our mentality at the time was the US will collapse. And I do still think that. I think at some point, this whole thing will be unsustainable. And so
100%.
our mentality was, well, we shouldn't just let it collapse and hurt everyone. We should do our best to, end this thing, this fucking death machine, as early as possible. And so a lot of things came out of that. You got accelerationists, and then you got hardcore preppers who are like, I don't want it to happen, but I know it's going to happen. It was, and so it wasn't. There was a lot of just I'm just here for the violence types as well, of course. And they've since moved on to, I'd say greener pastures, but muddier, more useless pastures with the whole Duma thing. And then you had people who were like, I am fucking exhausted with being angry, and basically, my whole ideology is leading to my inevitable demise. That's not fucking productive.
Yeah.
That's awful. and when you sit back and Mel, you won't want to take, you're not gonna want to stand on a pedestal and be praised for this, but I genuinely do give you a ton of credit for steering a lot of the community in a more productive path, because Sal had been doing his thing for a while. Plenty of Agorist had been, doing shit since the Ron Paul days, but no one had quite reached the very fucking wild and quickly growing libertarian anarchist community on Instagram the way that I feel like your post did in the early days, where it was a slap in the face, but just like libertarianism when it starts, it's planting those seeds, And so a bunch of fucking angry, wannabe revolutionaries are like, well, I do want to live a good life, and I just want a homestead. I just want to live a happy life with my family and be left the fuck alone. And it's like, you can do that and be effective.
I always thought it was
Part
super
of
cool.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, keep jinxing. I thought it was super cool when I tried to purposely provoke people by telling them that they were never going to do anything, and stuff like that, make them mad. But whenever I'd recommend books,
it's tough love.
Yeah, whenever I'd recommend books in my stories, a week later someone would be like, okay, I finished that book, what's next? And I'm like, oh my god, these people just want to learn, this makes me so happy.
Seriously.
And
yeah
it was always so great. They'd be like, okay, I read that article, and what do you think about this? It's just so amazing. No, go ahead, sorry.
No, I agree with you on that. What I was gonna say is, I think a lot of the anger also though was, there were elements of the whole like, you know, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me kind of stuff because the government, starts saying, hey, you're not gonna do this, and people are like, oh, watch us. And, then COVID hit, and we all put on our masks and hid in our houses. But
my friend Steppy says that libertarians are just like uniquely obsessive with stuff. We just had to get everybody obsessed about like the right thing, and they just ran with it. I think COVID was a big eye opener.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to have a rapidly growing platform at the start of this thing, and we were able to speak some sense and kind of call out the bullshit, especially when it started getting into when feds were just fucking everywhere and people were incriminating themselves for no reason, accomplishing nothing. Like the fucking I don't want to shit on him too hard, but the guy that put like Boogaloo stickers on the FBI building out in Arizona. Oh my, like yeah, well done. It wasn't even a good meme. Like there was no memes out of that. It was like, oh yeah, some got his house raided for no reason. Didn't accomplish anything. No one learned anything.
I had a Boogaloo 2020 bumper sticker on my Wrangler for a little while. It's still on my gun safe because I still I laugh at the ideology of it, but like it's kind of one of those things. Like I look back at things I did when I was 16. Not the best of decisions.
I don't. It was a good rallying cry, is my thing.
Yes.
It was a galvanizer, and it's fortunate that there wasn't too much collateral damage from poorly executed stuff, and it more it rounded us all up and got us energetic and excited and passionate. And then that has, I mean, just like the article says, it's hard to gauge exactly how far-reaching agorism is. But so many people are just like, I'm fucking exhausted being angry, and I just want to live the good life. And this whole COVID thing has enabled people to be like, you gave them the kick up the ass to be like, okay, well, dystopia is now. I'm gonna move away from it. I'm gonna live my life free like I always planned to today. But sorry, I interrupted Mel.
I was just gonna say the exact same thing. Cool. The Boogaloo meme or whatever helped radicalize a bunch of people, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, what I always say is this community grows in waves, massive public displays of events that dissatisfy a group of people who were so passionate in their support for the state or in some form, whether it was Ron Paul or Trump or whoever it was, Gary Johnson, Joe Jorgensen, as these people see that they can't vote their way to freedom and they're dissatisfied and angry, we get a fresh wave of people looking for answers. And now it's going to be, QAnon people and even more and more Black Lives Matter protesters and activists who are kind of being like, what the fuck? We won. Why aren't things changing? And the community gives me shit for this. Various parts of the community gives me shit for it, but I see a lot of them reaching out and finding us, not loudly, but just quietly following along and being like, huh, okay, these guys aren't what I've been told they are,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're able to do your own research and kind of, I guess, lower the veil. Is that the correct phrase I'm looking for?
Yeah,
you
and
see things for yourself. Realize, oh, there's a lot different things going on here than what Chris Hannity or Sean Hannity.
Who knows what those fucking NPCs are called? I have not watched a full news report in so fucking long, and mental health blossom for it.
I think another thing with the Boogaloo, I was always super anti-Boogaloo, but one of the benefits...
Even though you were recording with one of the most vocal at the time, groups of angry advocates
the voice
for it.
of reason.
It was a miracle.
Just a whole bunch of people who are, uniquely obsessive, were uniquely obsessive about getting armed and trained, which I think maybe if not for a freaking Civil War, which another thing, like everybody always means a revolution, but they say Civil War, but they think, the people versus the government. I think that's a big reason why these people think that everybody supports a Civil War as in like a race war, because we always say Civil War, but we mean revolution. Anyway.
Well, I think Civil War, it's a real mixed use of terminology, because you see, I feel like reporters and journalists, they will always use Civil War because it brings up, Confederacy, Union, and racism. It's like an instant, you don't have to say it.
Well, to use Revolutionary War, they would have to bring to the fact that maybe our government isn't worthy to exist. It would have to bring that question right to people's faces, and they don't even want to address that.
Oh, absolutely. That's the other thing. Revolution is in our culture. I mean, every other movie is some kind of righteous revolution, and then you can't call a bunch of radicals revolutionaries, because then it's gonna be like, okay, are they the underdog? Should I be sympathetic?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's just like a small side tangent, but
Oh, no,
I think
no,
that
it's
getting armed and trained is really important. But I think creating those systems of support and economic systems within your own community is to undermine the state is what's really important. And it took people being a part of that movement to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. What it's done for a lot of people, when we start talking about alternatives to policing as well, you've got these guys who've been training for something, and now they're like, they've been doing it a minute now. I've met up with groups, a few people, and talked to plenty of others across the country that are like pretty put together, to be honest. They're memers. Like you go on, you laugh at their shit, but they're actually pretty shit hot otherwise. With communication and movement and their gear, and also these guys are starting to understand that all of this bullshit. It is bullshit. It's better to be peaceful but not harmless. To have all this,
Exactly.
to have this ability, and to be like just unnerving the state. So, because these people are fucking everywhere. They are everywhere, and there's nothing they can do about it. They were radicalized, galvanized, got together with their friends, were productive about it, and they're continuing to do so quietly, because what the fuck has convinced them to stop? So, even though the original intention was flawed, I still think the actual actions of it, like you said, not just the community, but the training itself was valuable and important, and that should always be going on, as far as I'm concerned.
It wasn't even just like weapons training. These people were like buying freaking medical books and like
seriously
learning plants and tracking and
learn how to pack a gunshot wound and split a fracture or splint a fracture.
How to contact people in like a freaking EMP thing, whatever those things are called, goes
like a
off.
Faraday cage.
It's just like insane.
It really helped popularize prepper stuff. Like, the gun community was very much like, what's the newest and greatest, like AR. For the longest time they've stagnated like fuck, and now all of a sudden, after this, not just the pandemic, but all the Boogaloo stuff, there is a ton of people offering medical courses alongside their shooting courses now. And I'd wager that a significant amount of new EMTs over the last 2 years are radical quietly. People going through all of that.
Listen to Liberty-Minded Medic.
Yeah, people going through their the certifications and shit. All sorts of people going through the Stop the Bleed courses and stuff. And I mean, there are so many both left and right wing, and I hate to use that, but whatever, anarchists who I know who have really intensive medical training. It's fucking cool. All right, maybe we should continue with the article. Anyone got any more to add to that whole part of it?
Nope.
Nah, I'm good, man.
All right, cool. According to data tracked by the Social Media Analysis Toolkit, SMAT, that's a very unsexy acronym, A tool designed to track conversations and key terms across social media and messaging platforms. Quote, Agora saw similar spikes across Telegram and Reddit since the Black Lives Matter protests began. That's an interesting correlation. Services used by the Boogaloo include including social media platform MeWe, which I've never touched, which is anti-censorship, and Keybase, an encrypted messaging service, are not tracked by SMAP. Panvidya attributes the broader rise in anarchist thought to political dissatisfaction in the US on both sides of the political spectrum. Quote, you got the Tea Party and Donald Trump on the right, and then you got Senator Bernie Sanders and AOC on the left. And then when that didn't dramatically improve things, you saw people radicalize even further. Everyone wants their own chairs, Panvidya continued, referring to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, an area taken over by anti-racist protesters in Seattle during nationwide protests against police brutality. Building spaces that are autonomous from government influences is definitely growing within the movement and was the impetus of working with anti-fascist organizations, Panvidya said. So they're even talking about like separatism, essentially, you know, like autonomous zones, and obviously that was talked about in the media a fair bit when Chaz popped up, but then relating that to Boogaloo protest or Boogaloo activists and protesters and all that kind of thing is kind of interesting to me, because instead of, which they have partially harped on about the Civil War aim, it's almost making it a bit more sympathetic, talking about separating instead of like overthrowing, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know where the fuck this article is. I don't know if this article is particularly skewed or if just the like saying things like Civil War, if I'm just being butthurt and taking that as you know, trying to angle for a certain opinion in the reader. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that even like a lot of people in the community say Civil War just
Yeah.
because I don't know, I guess like for most people that's gonna just like invoke feelings about slavery and stuff. So I think it's just they're using it because everybody else uses it.
Yeah, it might literally just be like copy and paste from any other article written by anyone else on this thing rather than anything insidious. Not to give the media the benefit of my doubt.
Yeah.
Or any of
Well,
yours.
I use the term Civil War because
I'm sure I've used
it's
it too.
way more likely than a Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. When I think of like them talking about like a Civil War in America, I don't think of like oh hey, we got our guys fighting for slavery on one side and our guys that are fighting to preserve a union and maybe end slavery on the other side. Like I think more of like Lebanon in the 80s or Syria today. It's like 31 flavors, a little something for everybody.
Yeah, definitely 100%.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of small little groups that are like, hey, I got my little Chaz group over here. Like, all right, hey, you do that thing. But if you cross this little line, we may have an issue.
Yeah, like it's always funny when this conversation comes up, because Syria is the first thing that pops into my mind whenever I think of any kind of serious civil unrest, akin to what most people talk about when they mean the Boogaloo or a collapse of some description. It wouldn't just be freedom fighters against statists. Oh my god, the amount of fucking factions and ideologies in this country and the amount of land there is, it would be.
Hey, you're not a real libertarian. Just remember.
if I don't support open warfare for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I sat through in my uncomfortable time at Sandhurst. I sat through this briefing from some Royal Marine general who just came back, or whatever, commander, something like that, of coalition forces in Syria, and he came back and he gave like an hour and a half presentation on all the factions and motivations fighting in Syria. And by the fucking time he was done, I was like, I didn't know that many different groups could fight in one war. It's literally just like they'll have a fucking 20-unit group of people, and that's one faction, that's one ideology, and then there's like hundreds of them with slightly different goals and objectives and slightly different degrees of radicalization and who they're willing to fight with and who's shipping them in weapons, if it's Russia, the US, or fucking Syria, God knows what. And that's exactly how it would be here.
What was that fantastic news article? It was like in Syria, groups armed by the CIA are fighting groups armed by the Department of Defense or something like that.
Yeah. It's like it would be that and that much ridiculous and so much more if it was within the borders of this country, but that's a whole.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you'd probably see 3 million little HOAs fighting each other.
Yeah. Something else interesting from this part of the article I want to talk about was this little bit right here. Panvidya attributes the broader rise in anarchist thought to political dissatisfaction in the US on both sides of the political spectrum. It's like, holy shit. That's actually kind of like it makes it sound sympathetic to a degree, doesn't it? It's
right, yeah.
It's offering like a glimpse of empathy and being like, yeah, this is how they got there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with
that. I don't know if this was just like, written at 3 a.m. as just like some more shit to chuck in tomorrow's posts, but or if this actually like the whole editing process properly, which I'm not sure ever happens in journalism anymore. But I don't know. It keeps, like I said, it keeps on going back between like being open and actually like not so propagandy, and then just using those like flash terms like civil war and shit. So yeah, and then also like even offering up like Tea Party, Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, AOC, and then relating that to people who they've been calling violent terrorists, like domestic terrorists and shit for a year. I don't know.
Well, I think that's just his quote though. Also.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
How did this guy become the spokesperson for?
I'm just very.
Nobody else wanted to be involved with it.
Well, most people involved are smart enough to know that the whole thing works because it's fucking like needs to be as anonymous as possible and decentralized.
Right.
Like that's why, like, very fucking early on, even on our show, we're like, we are not leaders. We're not leaders of this thing. We're just fucking pundits, And then when you have people like, oh no, I am a leader of it, it's like, okay, well that's when this thing's starting to fall apart, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy continues. So right and left, Panvidya wants cooperation. He invites left-wing activists to discuss issues via social media and has appeared on left-wing populist Jimmy Dore's YouTube channel to discuss their similarities in belief, such as anti-racism and LGBT support. However, the ideological valley between left and right-wing anarchists is deep. Both want a stateless society, but their methods of achieving it are opposed. And here's where they actually say, anarcho-capitalists. Anarcho-capitalists follow what many in the US would view as extreme libertarianism. They want all production and services privatized with labor and markets intact. Most left-wing anarchists view the end of wage labor and private ownership of certain goods as integral. They largely do not want, quote, counter-economic markets to be part of their route to end the state. But Derek Brose, an agorist who is working on a biography of Samuel Edward Konkin III, the man who created the ideology in the 1970s, told Al Jazeera that agorism was born out of, quote, a desire to tap into both left and right. So they're going all out. They're giving you the fucking author's name, and I guess it was more than just what's his name, Panvidya. They were also talking to this another agorist, Derek Brose. I don't know. Has anyone heard of him? Is he notable?
I don't really know names. Just show me his picture on social media.
Right. But is he chunky? Is the appropriate question. Like, is he a true agorist or is he just a poser? Is he a fake agorist like me and Mel?
Is he just a biographer at the end of the
day? Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, yeah. Brose explained that some left-wing... I love Brose. Bros just be explaining about Konkin. Bros just be talking about Konkin. Bros explained that some left-wing anarchists allow for markets, and Konkin believed counter-economics would serve feminist and black liberation movements. Still, the ideology appeals more to, quote, American libertarians, he said. While Bros does not view himself as an anarcho-capitalist, many Agorists do. I'm stumbling over my words like fucking Jared from Biting the Bullet. Konkin's ties to Murray Rothbard, a prominent libertarian, are also a concern for leftists and anti-racists. Rothbard coined the term anarcho-capitalism and was founder of the Ludwig von Mises. So many terms I'm gonna fuck up. Thank you. Which the Southern Poverty Law Center describes as, quote, neo-Confederate.
Oh, you gotta love the Southern Poverty Law Center. Anytime they open their mouth, you're just like, well, thanks.
Oh, listen, bullshit. It's such a shame because they like all these organizations that started in the civil rights movement, which is the one that was like really hardcore free speech. It wasn't the Southern Poverty Law Center, it was the other big civil rights.
NAACP?
I think it's them. Yeah, one of them
The Jewish one?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. They were like, or they were really hardcore about the First Amendment rights of some fucking neo-Nazi cunts who were like, they wanted to parade through town and they were trying to make a law against it, and NAACP defended it, if memory serves correctly, right?
Oh, maybe the ACLU.
Yeah, maybe one of those kind of conversations born of
It sounds
of that
familiar, but
era.
I don't want to miss.
Yeah, I might be just talking shit.
Organization.
This is not a fact
now that I
check
think about it, also,
show.
I think SPLC was the first ones to say that the Boogaloo movement was a white supremacist race war.
Yeah.
But anytime that they find something that is, there's more than two white guys in a group that hanging out and saying we don't like the government, they're like, well, there it is, we found about it, everybody.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like they're not so much. There's some organizations who might attack the wrong thing now and then, but mostly do good. And then there's some that just seem to be bad actors who have agendas over, caring about specifics and, giving benefit of the doubt to people. And SPLC seem very, very much a bad actor in my opinion, these days. But neo fucking Confederate. Now we're back to moving through this article. My kind of take of the opinion is now that they're basically just it's unopinionated apart from what they check via fact checkers. That's the kind of like the feel I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whatever the approved opinion is by journalists, like trusted journalist sources, that's the opinion of this article. It doesn't seem too propaganda riddled from the writer's perspective, but everything's fact checked by people who are, which is strange because.
I was just gonna say, I think from when I was reading it this morning, I think this was the only sentence where I read it 6 times to be like, "Are you kidding me?" Because the rest of it, it kind of will at least give you they say they're this, but this is really what we found out.
Yeah.
What is the sentence?
Where he's talking about the Mises Institute being a neo-Confederate organization.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh Christ! And here it comes. Konkin also served on the board of the Institute for Historical Review, known for Holocaust revisionism.
They correct that, but it is true.
They do?
Yeah, they correct it.
Okay. Bros said Konkin didn't. See, bros always have Konkin's back.
Heck yeah, go bros.
I'm just pronouncing it like it could be bros, but I'm just saying it the way I imagine. The way I want it to be said. I really hope he's not a part of our community and he hears this. Bros said Konkin did not share those views and said it was a, quote, unfair association. Al Jazeera's review of Konkin's available writings did not find examples of racism or anti-Semitism, though it was not exhaustive. Okay, it's Konkin's secret racist journal. They didn't find that. According to a person working with the anarchist media platform It's Going Down, IGD, who asked for anonymity, these and other ideological divides, including support for far-right figures like Kyle Rittenhouse, the teen who shot anti-racist protesters in Wisconsin, make cooperation difficult between left-wing anarchists and the Boogaloo. When asked if anti-fascist organizations are working with the Boogaloo, the representative responded, I would say unequivocally, no. Penvidya points to Boogaloo.
Be upset to
Penvidya points to Boogaloo presence at Black Lives Matter protests, notably in Louisville, where they say they have provided security for demonstrations around Breonna Taylor's death. The Boogaloo believes the story of their first martyr, Duncan Lemp, shares similarities with Taylor. Big rip in the chat for Duncan. Where was that? Shares similarities with Taylor. Both were killed by police during no-knock raids. Lemp, reported to be associated with the 3%ers militia, died March 12, 2020, in Potomac, Maryland, the day before Taylor was shot in Louisville. Lemp was in bed when police fired on his home. I fucked up. Lemp was in bed when police fired on his home, his family and supporters claim, while police say shots were fired as officers approached. But we'll never fucking know, because they botched the body cam footage. So it's all up in the air. It's all a big fucking mystery.
Quotes, air quotes, botched the cam footage.
Yeah. It only took them, like 5 months to decide to decide they didn't have the correct footage, and they just showed the cleanup after they almost certainly moved the body and realized they fucked up.
Well, hey, that's the hallmark of police operations. I made a mistake, Sergeant. It's like, well, we got to take a couple months to figure out how to erase it.
Like, so let's put this on the back burner until everyone's forgotten about it.
Yes.
Rechenault, an organizer. I don't know if I'm saying that right. An organizer with Chenault. If it's French, or otherwise European, I'm gonna fuck it up. Maybe on purpose. I'm not sure.
On basic principle.
Yeah, an organizer with BLM Louisville told Al Jazeera there has been no cooperation with the Boogaloo movement and claimed they are not present at demonstrations. Okay, well, that's coming from an organization that has, very little to do with the organic movement, in my opinion. Who gives a fuck what the organization says? I need to talk to some more organic protesters, but whatever. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
At the end of the day, a member of the Boogaloos, whoever says that they are,
yeah.
So that's why you have that. A white supremacist could say, "Yeah, I'm a Boogaloo member," but then also a person that's just standing there quietly and in solitude, in support of whatever the cause is. They could also be one, so
yeah.
You can blanketly say there have been no cooperation. If they're there, technically they're cooperating.
Well, yeah. I mean, Christ, all it would take for a white guy to call himself or for a white supremacist to call himself a BLM supporter would be to chuck on a red and black face mask and black bloc and march alongside of you. Anyone could be anything. It's a decentralized movement. It's all fucking ridiculous to think that saying outright they're not present at demonstrations and they don't work with them. It's like, guess what? Some people have. That's
maybe he's just mad that 5 half-ton trucks didn't show up with 50 people in Hawaiian shirts rolling out in formations or something. But
well, I'd almost think they, or at least the organizers would hope they would, so they could make a big spectacle of it.
Yeah.
But, regarding the Boogaloo's moves, we're almost at the end, and then we can talk about all this and break it up. Regarding the Boogaloo's moves to work with left-wing organizations, Chenault said he finds it, quote, it hard for left elements and right elements of the type they are claiming to remain in the same organization. And Vidya said the Boogaloo's cooperation with other groups is, quote, less about affiliation and what you call yourself, and more about, quote, your ideology and what are you trying to accomplish? There's some parts of the country where we work with BLM and we get into fistfights with 3%ers on site. And then there's other places, kind of based, and then there's other places where the local BLM chapter hates us and we work with local 3%ers. He concluded, the realm of acceptable ideas is a lot wider than a lot of people think. And I'll agree with this president of the Boogaloo on that at the least.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
President Penvidya 2024. The Boogaloo will be accomplished by voting, contrary to popular belief.
Wait,
You
he
can
did.
vote your way into the Boogaloo.
I'm giving this guy so much shit on stuff that he's probably like nothing as much as I'm giving him shit for, but I don't know. So what I find interesting is kind of the end of this article as well, how it goes on and on about, like, you know, how they're trying to seek unity and how people of both sides are dissatisfied and kind of tumbling into this movement. And then it ends with you know, the official source is kind of the answer to all of this, aka like you know, a BLM organizer saying no, they weren't there, and that's like the fact. It's it's interesting after all of that. That's like the final say. The Boogaloo movement has a new strategy, and it ends with the BLM organizer going, "No, we're not doing that." Yeah. It's, but the whole thing. It's funny how it's sidestepping this conversation. I'm sure you guys have seen the memes. It's like it's that awful, cringy, red, white, and blue drab, like typical conservatarian looking guy with an AR. And he's like crudely drawn, and then he's standing. He's either standing beside or like fist bumping a crudely drawn.
Oh my
like,
god, no! Don't even.
Like black.
Why are you
protester?
putting that back in my mind?
Yeah, but like it's stupid and looks like shit. But it's kind of this
I got
it's
you
meant
back,
to
brother.
be a whole. Yeah, exactly. It's meant to be this wholesome meme, like we're in this together, unity, and you know, all behind that shit. But it's just so it looks so shit, and that was
I hate that meme.
I've
so
seen that
much.
reshared. Yeah, I've seen it reshared like so many hundreds of times. And I always like it because I like the message, but it's stupid.
Yeah.
I'm feeling
It sends a
retroactive
good message.
guilt.
It's just, it's one of those kind of cringy.
Yeah, like you just give the guy a like and move on, and you know, clean your eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny how we went from really being on the cusp of that, despite what you know, a lot of people really criticize all of that shit of trying to cooperate. I always thought there's no harm in it as long as you know, do it responsibly and be mindful of your objectives and all that shit, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't think it was the worst thing in the world, and there's a lot of people I saw doing it right, you know, spreading the word that it's more than just this one faction who finds police brutality abhorrent. It's actually like a massive community that's been doing this a long time, you know. Because we've been saying fucking ACAB the past 5 years.
Right.
You know, in between the last was it Ferguson, like 2015?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The last time there was like a big breakout of riots and protesting about this stuff, and then it, you know, quietly goes away, and then it strikes up again, as it always does, because band-aid solutions. And so, you know, this whole time, because of our many disagreements with law enforcement existing in the way it currently does and all that, we've been talking about this for such a long time, and people thought it was so crazy that when the Black Lives Matter protests initially started, that we would find mutual like cause with them, you know. And so many people were getting upset, thinking it was this purely left-wing thing, and we are purely a right-wing thing, and getting locked into this tribalist argument or like conflict. Like, these have to be people we're against, even though we share ideas with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then once people finally fucking started to figure that out, and we saw people, you know, protesting together and kind of, you know, a little bit of cross-contamination of ideas, and more people getting exposed to seeing, again, it's not just BLM protesting this stuff. There's other factions out there who also have a problem with it. That you know, you might find more common ground with, whatever it might be. You know, there was a lot of progress with that. And then it was so efficiently
Kind of a
shut
safety
down
in numbers.
by. Yeah, it was as more kind of recovering. I was gonna say recovering Republicans and conservatives were finding their way to be like, yeah, you know what, I do have a problem with law enforcement, and you know, and seeing how it correlates to gun rights and you know, just liberty and shit. And there was that moment of unity where you were starting to see it, because so many people were finally being like I said, even conservatives, there was a brief moment where it was like there was a lot less bootlicking. And then when it became a whole us versus them, like Boogaloo, the Boogaloo movement is a antagonistic separate thing to BLM, because the official BLM organization has said they denounce these guys, and then, you know, the media is calling the Boogaloo guys officially white supremacists. There was all this like cleanup that came in very rapidly.
Drive as big a wedge between the two people, you know, the two groups working together as possible.
Yeah,
And get them at
divide
each
and
other, and
conquer.
then they'll stop, you know, coming after, you know, police station in Portland.
Yeah. We went from like abolish the police to defund the police to reform the police to elect Biden and Kamala Harris, a drug warrior and a and a lifetime cop. Yeah. We have a lifelong cop with awful prosecutions, one position of power away from nukes, and after a summer of police brutality protests, and people are like, oh no, that's everything worked out, you know, we won.
She's cool, guys. She smokes weed and laughs about it, and then puts your dad away.
yeah, fuck it. It's just insane how efficiently co-opted it was. And what really saddens me, and I'm getting to the end of my long-winded rant, I promise, is that so many libertarians fell for it. So many people who, you know, daily acknowledge that police are a problem were so easily turned against protesters because of, you know, the riots, of course, were like, you know, fucked up in a lot of ways.
Well, I think that's a result of the programming. Most people are programmed so hard and from such an early age about trusting different parts of the government that and hating other people that it doesn't take much. Like the same people say they hate the cops, and the cops are the ones that are going to take your guns, are expect the legal system to work.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the whole judicial system to actually be functioning, and they really think that.
According to Rob Pincus.
Oh, fuck me. Don't get me started on fucking.
I only bring it up because I just listened to your interview with Stiletto.
Yeah, you're just trying to trigger me in the middle of a completely separate thing, and it's working. God damn you. But yeah, like at the same time, all of this, like this wedge from the media and all of the official avenues, because that's the only thing our brainwashed country, you know, believes in, the official avenues. Whether we ask the police what officially happened when they shot someone and expect a clear answer. But
we investigated ourselves and found that we did
absolutely nothing wrong and did a very good job while we were at it. We're actually gonna give ourselves a raise. But
yeah, and a couple medals to go with it.
Fuck yeah, why not? But yeah, they turned a country around from being on the brink of some serious, at the very least, police reform and massive defunding across the board, and they turned that around to, you know, electing Democrats, and then being like, oh yeah, we should also empower the cops to have a second drug war, but on guns. So yeah, it's not like that's going to harm the same communities we're currently so concerned about, supposedly. No, it's only going to be the MAGA flag houses that get raided. It's totally not going to be random stop and frisk for guns everywhere.
Sure to put your thin blue line flag out to you know, let the police pass over your house this evening.
Oh Christ. Putting I'm not Christian enough to know what they put on the doors to to stop babies being killed, but doing that
Wasn't it lamb's blood?
Yeah.
Lamb's blood?
That's right. Somewhere Marauder Rises is cringing. Sorry, buddy.
We're all
I
gonna
didn't
get hate
pay
mail in the
attention.
morning.
Yeah, everyone's like, I thought BR was a good Christian. But
who is Al Jazeera's target audience?
that's a good question, because whenever I hear Al Jazeera, I just think they're like a branch of ISIS, which is probably.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna lie, I do too.
But
Well, I think they're like one of the largest news things in the world. Like,
yeah. All right. Here's the like quick summary. Oh, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, anytime I'm like, I share something from them, somebody will be like, "Oh, but it's Al Jazeera."
Yeah.
It's the ISIS news source.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know.
George Bush kept it out of our America for years.
I wonder who owns it. So, the quick, Wikipedia description. Al Jazeera is an international Arabic news channel based in Doha, Qatar, and is operated by the media conglomerate Al Jazeera Media Network, which doesn't give us any answers. It's not Murdoch. The channel is a flagship of the media conglomerate and hence is the only single offering to carry the name as simply Al Jazeera in its branding. Okay, well, that tells me nothing. Let's see what the
Emir of Qatar is.
The channel. Oh, Hamad bin Tamer Al Thani.
Al Thani.
Something like
Hamid bin
Al Thani. All right, that's the second hate crime.
Yeah, I apologize.
I just reading this article. I mean, it's kind of nerdy. Like, I mean, I just don't know who would be reading this. Like, who does this reach?
No, that's true, because in the age of clicks is how we pay our bills and keep the lights on. Although I'm also curious, because most of these articles, they probably go semi-viral, and because we have such a, as you said, like obsessive community, and as always, I would add autistic, and we're so eager to jump on these articles. No, there's not. You just gotta admit to it. We're also quick to jump on these articles. They probably quietly do numbers. They're not gonna like be shared by every news network in the world, and like and every guy wearing a MAGA hat, or every guy with a I don't know, whatever the fuck Democrats do. But like we're a very obsessive niche community, and if you release an article like this, like I said, it probably quietly does some numbers. So maybe that's the goal.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's just like a niche thing.
Oh, whoever the author is, maybe they're just tired of the slant. Decided, hey, I'm just going to report down the middle. Up until the quote SL, poverty law. Beyond that, I mean, like I said, I read it over a couple of times, and I was like looking to see if there was anything I could get genuinely angry about, and it wasn't.
No, it's kind of an old school news article where they just kind of look for some facts and try to make an interesting story out of the best, the most truthful way they can do it. Yeah,
no one's ever gonna call us a hero by any means, but it's it's not fucking vilifying us quite so much as some of these things have done in the past.
I think it was Matt Freeman on Status Quo who said that there's not many journalists left. They're all reporters. They report off the script that they're given. But this feels like it's actual journalism.
Yeah.
Someone took the time to say, hey, there's two sides to this story. Let's kind of walk the middle line.
And then copy and paste a few tweets they like. Maybe have a phone call with some guys.
Yeah.
So this Hamad Al etc. Before starting Al Jazeera, he joined the Ministry of Information in 1987 and then served as Undersecretary to the Minister of Information until 1994 in Qatar. So if that tells you anything, the head of the major news organization in that part of the world was part of the Ministry of Information. So it's I don't think they particularly care about being neat about hiding that kind of thing around there, because you ask too many questions, you get your hands cut off. So
No, if anything, it's no different than CNN
You
or
build
the
a FIFA
BBC.
stadium.
yeah, just a lot less obvious, or a lot more obvious than we do it in the Western world.
He's got a nice net worth, 0.78 billion.
Yeah. Although I mean, Christ, American networks could buy that up like that. But I guess
that's
that.
just his personal.
Oh Christ, yeah, that's right. Fuck, that's a lot of money.
I could buy a couple of.
Yeah, I could buy a few interesting things with that. So yeah, it kind of an interesting thing to look back on as a movement now that I mean, there's still a lot of energy. There's still people who certainly call themselves boot boys. But I'd say kind of the people who really were the core of it at the start, a lot of them have moved on to different strategies and different things. So it's interesting to look back and be like, huh, how's that old girl doing? And it's interesting that we went from it being, obviously during the election, there was so much of it associated with being a MAGA thing to vilify it. And now that all that heat's off, we're getting more honest and interesting reporting on it, even if I'm sure there's propaganda skewed in there, and there's end goals envisioned by the people behind this, perhaps, but it's just an interesting, different kind of reporting, and also for us to think back on how it's evolved.
Well, maybe in like 10 years or so, we'll get Project Veritas to release another CNN technical director talking about how they, create a propaganda campaign around the Boogaloo or something.
Yeah,
like
they'll be like, we fortified the country's safety by a whole ton of psyops, working in close conjunction with the state. We did this for your safety. Please clap.
Yeah.
I'll be fucking interviewed by some young spunky Vice or whatever the fuck the equivalent is in like 40 years. I'm sitting there with shakes from all of this bullshit. Thing I've been spied on my whole life. Fuck knows. I actually spoke to a few journalists. I'm not sure if they never contacted me with an article that came out of talking to them, but it was funny. I did speak to some real journalists throughout this whole process, like about Duncan Lemp and about kind of the movement, and the more anarchist core of it. So I don't know. I would be interested in more people honestly telling the story, and then I don't know.
I spoke with
cleaning up the
one-
legacy.
I think it was Mr. Featherstone. I don't remember which. He might have been with Wired. Because Duncan was, part of our, made our website.
Yeah.
He actually reached out to me, anniversary of his death. We had anything that we wanted to talk to, say to his mother or anything like that. We just said, pass on our best and stuff. But otherwise, when that happened, I think I had like 8 or 9 other journalists contact me. And I said, oh, hey, I'm out of town right now. Let me get back to you. And then never got back to me, and I read their articles, and it was like, oh, and such and such. All right, well, thanks, guys.
Yeah. Any kind of closing thoughts on the article or the movement at large?
I searched Twitter for people who had reposted it, and it doesn't look like the other side is very interested in unity.
Oh, so what kind of leftists are talking about it? Is it like Black Lives Matter people, or is it Antifa types, or like more straight up
looks like
ANCOMs and shit?
Yeah, it looks like a mix of all that, but they're just like, I guess the whole thing is like red browning would be a really big problem this year, and I googled that, and it's like blending socialism and fascism, and that's what they're calling it, is red browning, to like side with the Boogaloo movement. and because it's not explicitly anti-racist, they don't want any part of it.
Christ. See, and that's kind of the weakness of associating yourself with like a big label like that, especially when it's been. That's why so many of us dropped it, even though we were there. You know, we helped birth the damn thing. we dropped it when it began being associated with shit that got to a point that was no longer effective or useful to us, and so many people didn't understand that. They're like, oh, we can't just give it up or they win. And it's like, I get that, but that it becomes less utilitarian and more prideful, and that's when you start to get hurt. That's when you start to get roped in and monitored by
Someone's
feds.
going to feel left out at the end of the day if you don't, release a 4,000-page statement of the cause.
Well, yeah, like as any movement grows, I mean, like it just becomes less and less principled. Or at least if there's not like a really on point way of educating people, and it's more of a casual movement. I mean, like how it ended up was it was anything from hardcore, libertarian anarchists, whatever you want to call it, agorists, practicing training and being ready if a collapse was to take place, all the way to, you had your obviously like 4chan racists, all like 6 of them. You had like the real boogeyman of the Boogaloo. And your MAGA types, conservatarians, all sorts of different levels of extremism, to the point that it was like, in the end, kind of pointless to use as a label. It was good. It was a good galvanizing thing to start with, but when it got to that point where it was no longer putting out the message it intended to at the start, it was like, okay, well, the car's fucking dead. There's no fixing it. How about we get a new one? Move on to something more productive. And that's what most of us have done. And then it's just weird to see this dead meme still wandering around trying to do its best. And I feel for the people doing it. I just think they're kind of this might be the first thing they've got into politically. They might have been like really normie conservatives who got radicalized by the Boogaloo stuff, and so they would call themselves a Boogaloo boy before they'd call themselves a libertarian, an anarchist, a agorist, whatever it might be. God damn it.
Man, you said the cats weren't going to interrupt. Here they
He's
are.
an anarchist.
Here we are.
Cats are anarchists. They don't give a fuck. Oh, come on, dude. So yeah, now we're at this point where the thing's been, it's dead in my opinion, and it was a nice thing while it lasted. Like I said, it was good fuel for the fire, and it's time to move on, be utilitarian, find the next thing that galvanizes people. Use the energy, use stuff we've learned from this, but build it up to be less co-optable and
focus your time and energy into things that are, also going to benefit you more directly on a day-to-day basis.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like
what's the running joke is that hey, sure, the boog is on, people are shooting each other in the streets. You're going to last 3 days because you have plenty of ammo, but you didn't bring any way to make water safe. You have no extra. So you're just fat and it's hot outside, and that happens.
Yeah, we had a whole lot of people who were, spending all their time and money practicing flat range stuff, but you ask them how their prepper stuff was. I bet there's tons of people out there who have, 1,000, 2,000 rounds of 5.56 still sitting in their garage, but then we're like out there fighting other people for toilet paper and fucking milk,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, that's a big lesson to take. When a real crisis hit, when real dystopia just happened overnight, instead of being, this far-flung hope almost for a lot of people, including ourselves, some of us at one point, people don't know what the fuck to do. and so they've clung on to the only thing they had, the Boogaloo movement, and now that's their vehicle, even if it's sitting dead on the hard shoulder, not getting them anywhere.
They're waiting for AAA to come and jumpstart them, get them back on the road.
But unfortunately, they lost coverage 6 months ago.
Always
Uh,
happens to me.
Yeah, me too. I don't think I've been covered in so fucking long, so fingers crossed. Anyone else have any thoughts before we end?
Nope. I got
Nope.
nothing.
No.
All right, well, cool. I've been wanting to revisit this for a while because every time something happens, whether it was the 2021 Richmond rally, and we had those guys who they were waving trans rights flags and shit, and then they stood in front of the cops, and there was a picture of them, and it made it look like they were forming a line in front of the police defending them.
Yeah.
And some of you guys might remember me posting about that, and I was like, what the fuck has this turned into? I thought they were a bunch of bootlicking conservatives. Turned out it was just a really bad picture of them, and that's completely on them. It's, you gotta be really fucking mindful when you're doing a very visual protest and you're not doing interviews or enough that, it really gets out there. That's something people have to learn from is, a picture's 1,000 words, and all it takes is one bad one to really fuck up your movement, and they just plaster up every single time they wanted to cry you. It's like, oh no, look at these assholes. Like I mean like the capital quote insurrection, the rowdy GOP convention where one asshole brought a Confederate flag, and then it's like, yeah, white supremacists. It's like, yep, you just fucked over everyone in there, Not that whole thing was fucking stupid regardless, but that one guy has helped paint all of them in a shitty light in terms of optics. So
Exactly. Like you said, man, one bad photo and that's all it takes.
yeah, you gotta be mindful in the age of mass propaganda. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Smokey. It's been fucking good to have you, and we need to give you a proper episode talking about your project soon enough.
Oh, hey, I look forward to it. Hey, thank you very much for having me, guys. I'm
of course,
stoked to be on here.
Is there anything you want to plug?
Yeah.
I guess I could just plug my, the Instagram and Twitter handle. That's the only thing we have really going at the moment. Instagram is just the state of Appalachia, and then I think on Twitter my handle is _Appalachia. And then, like I said, I listen to your guys' podcasts pretty much all day at work, so I'd give you guys a plug right back. If you like what I have to say, and you listen to eMilitia, you guys are doing it correct.
Thanks, man.
I just followed
Thank
you
you.
on Twitter. I thought I already did.
God damn it, man.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks for
Well,
coming.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time. Oh shit! I just told him to join again. Fuck off, Craig.